Hey guys, it's Jenny here. Welcome back to my channel. And here's Faithy, who's always interfering, but it's okay because she's cute. So today it is February 3rd, so I figured there's no time like the present for filming my January wrap-up. Could anybody just see that cat hair fly everywhere? Whew. So all in all, I ended up reading 8 books in January. And I mean, I am proud of this. I do feel like that's a decent amount to get me back into reading. I just wish I would have been able to fit in more and just stick to my reading schedule. But I'm happy with what I read. I had a pretty good reading month. All in all, I had 4 5 stars, 2 4.5 stars, 1 4 star, and 1 3.5 stars. So that's a pretty good reading month. So I'm just going to go right in order and we're just going to hop right into this. So the first book I read was Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. This was the book that we read for January for my Massathon. And I really loved this. I loved each and every story. As you can see, I had a lot of thoughts while reading this. And I just thought that it gave a lot of insight to Celaena's story throughout the Throne of Glass series, and I just felt like the struggles. I felt like it really strengthened her as a character in general, and just, I don't know, it just made her more, I don't know, it just really shows her struggles and what she went through, and that she's not just this, you know, ruthless assassin, that there's so much more to her. So I gave this a 5 stars. I loved this. I thought our live show was a lot of fun. We have a lot of stuff to work out, and it was just our first one, but overall I really enjoyed this book, and I cannot wait for my reread of Throne of Glass. So the next book I read was Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. This was our book club pick for our backlist book club, which was hosted by Morgan's Bookshelves. And we skipped the live show due to some personal reasons, but this was a reread for me and I thoroughly adored it. I listened to it on audio this time and it was just as good as the first time. I thought it was so great. It's a really dark story, so keep in mind, sorry, this lighting is giving me a run for my money. This is so dark. It's about this girl named Alex who knows how to kill someone, and she knows this because her older sister was violently raped and then murdered and left in the woods, and they had caught her killer, but they let him go free because there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. So she takes it upon herself to enact revenge for her sister, killing this man, and throughout the story killing men who do these violent crimes. And it just packs a really powerful punch. She ends up befriending the jock of the school along with the preacher's kid, and they just form this bond. And this book, I would definitely say read it at your own discretion because it is dark and it's really hard to just take in. But I gave this a 5 stars. Next, I read P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. This was book 2 in the To All the Boys I Loved Before series. And this was really good. I liked it. I liked the kind of love triangle aspect because I liked both boys a lot. I just found a lot of the characters to be getting quite annoying. I don't know. I didn't really like Lara Jean in the story, and I didn't like Peter in the story as much. So, yeah, but I did get attached to quite a few of the other characters, like Stormy and stuff. But, yeah, I did like this a lot. It just, some of the trivial conflict did knock it down for me a little bit. So I gave this a 4.5 star. Next, I read Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. This centers on this is set in 1989, I believe. Let me check, just to be sure. 1986. So this centers on a girl named Eleanor, who's a new kid at school. She dresses very oddly, and she's built bigger, she's got this flaming red hair, and she's just kind of like a social outcast in her new school. And while Park is this lanky Asian kid who is kind of always kept to himself and doesn't really fit into his family, these two end up riding the same bus, and they start the novel hating each other and end up developing this really unique bond. And this story was so cute. I loved it so much more than I ever thought that I would. I was like, okay, Eleanor and Park, it's been hyped in the past. Guess I'll pick it up just for my introduction to Rainbow Rowell, and I loved it so much. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, like, at all. I really liked how their romance wasn't that cheesy, stereotypical stuff. It was, like, unique and genuine and not what you would expect, and I really liked that about it. And I also liked how diverse these characters were and how they weren't glorified in the eyes of everybody else, but they were, in each other's eyes, they were who they wanted, and I really loved that. Plus, there was a domestic violence trope in this that I actually found was woven in really well. And I don't know, I just really, everything about the story I really liked. I can't really think of much that I didn't love about the story, other than that I wish it was longer, and I wish it had ended differently, because it made me so sad the way that it ended, and I will admit that Eleanor kind of did get on my nerves quite a bit. But that's just, I really loved the story. So I gave this a full 5 stars, and I'm so glad I finally picked up one of Rainbow Rowell's books. Next, I read I Stopped Somewhere by T.E. Carter. This is about a girl, oh my god, I forgot her name, named Ellie, who disappeared, and says Ellie Fries disappeared long before she vanished. So she was tormented all throughout middle school, and she decides to start her freshman year of high school kind of with a new appearance. So she gets help from one of her neighbor friends just to kind of dress differently. Not even to necessarily become one of the girls, but just to blend in so some of the bullying will drift away from her. So she ends up catching the attention of this upperclassman boy. They end up developing a relationship. And long story short, she disappears. She finds herself trapped after a brutal assault, and she wasn't the first victim, and now she watches it happen again and again. She tries to hold on to her happier memories in order to get past the cold days waiting for someone to find her. The problem is, no one searches for a girl they never noticed in the first place. And this book packed a huge punch. It was very, very sad and dark and just heavy. I will say that. Just the whole thing, it was so, like, heavy, emotionally heavy. And I think this is a really good book. I would definitely recommend this to somebody who wants to learn more about rape culture and what happens when what can happen even if girls do come forward. Like, it was a very infuriating book to read, I'll tell you that. But I did give this a 3.5 stars. Not because the story itself wasn't good, but some of the characters, most of the characters actually, I didn't like at all. Even the main character and some of the side characters, I can't even think of one character that I did really like. I mean, I would see a character and be like, oh my god, I hate him. Or I would see a character and be like, oh my god, I want justice for her. But I wouldn't be like, oh my god, I really like her. And so I didn't have an emotional attachment to the characters. I will say that I did cry at the end, but it's just like, I didn't have an emotional attachment to the characters or really to the story. It was just more of like a read to read. It wasn't something that absorbed me, but the story itself was really fantastic and well done. I will say that the flashbacks and the present tense of the back and forth did confuse me, but I guess that narrative was necessary in telling the story that was being told. So I would recommend this, just trigger warnings for rape and assault and stuff like that. But I gave this a 3.5 stars. Next, I picked up a poetry collection, and that was Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Peppernell. I gave this a 4 stars. I really did enjoy this. My only problem with it is that more of the stories and categories that she wrote about were things that I couldn't find myself relating to. There was one section where I related to a lot of things, but ultimately, more of the first half of it, I couldn't relate to it at all, and I found myself skimming or even skipping some of the stories just because I was like, okay, I can't find myself relating to this. I can't see myself in the situation. So it couldn't really impact me the way that I know she intended to, and the way that I know it probably has impacted other readers. So, I don't know. The ending section, though, was really beautiful. I did cry a couple times in the ending. And I think she has a really beautiful way with words. And I really enjoyed it. The only other thing I have to say about it is that there was a little bit of repetition throughout her poems, which is common in poetry. There's a lot of repetition, but other than that, I think this is a really good read. It was a fast read. I read it in like an hour. It took me longer because I was tabbing it and rereading some of my favorite poems, but it's a really fast read, and if you're looking to get into poetry, I would recommend this one along with, Atticus Poetry and Amanda Lovelace and stuff like that. So, 4 stars for this one. Next, I read Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. Mary is the character. So, this story centers on a girl named Mary, who, as a child, is babysitting with her mother. They are a black family, and they were babysitting for a white family. So, under her care, a white baby dies. So, I can't remember how much she was. The white baby was killed under the care of a church-going black woman and her 9-year-old daughter. The public convicted Mary, the child, and that was that. She wouldn't say if she would do it or not. She survived all these years in baby jail before being moved to a group home, and she still hasn't come forward until she falls pregnant and has a boyfriend and a family to begin living for. And then the case really starts unraveling. So, the state threatens to take her baby. She decides to find the voice to fight her past, and her fate lies in the hands of the one person she distrusts the most, which is her mom. And nobody knows the real mom. So, this book was a lot to handle, to be honest. I had read Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson first, which is her newest novel. I had no idea this one existed. So the second I found out it existed, I went right to Book Outlet and picked it up. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get this. And I'm so glad I did. I really, really, really love Tiffany D. Jackson's writing style. I love her true crime aspect and the racial aspects that she intertwines into her stories. And it's just like, the stories are so addicting. Like, you're always wanting to know more about what's happening with these crimes. And I couldn't put this down. I actually put down Six of Crows to finish this because I was like, oh my god, I need to know what happens next. And I thought this was such a good book. I loved knowing more, and when things got revealed and the story finally came out, the only thing that prevented this from getting 5 stars was the ending. The ending was so anticlimactic, and I was so upset about it because it left me with more questions than answers, and I was so confused. I'm like, wait, what? That can't be it, right? Like, that kind of just made us go 10 steps back instead of resolving the story. So if this would have been a couple, like 50 to 100 pages more, like the size of Monday's Not Coming, this would have been a phenomenal book. I still think it was a great book. I just wish the ending would have been resolved more and I would have had more answers. So this got a 4.5 stars. And the last book that I read in January before falling into a book slump was Always and Forever, Lara Jean by Jenny Han. This is book 3 in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy. So this is the last book, and I really liked this book. I have not given any of the books in this trilogy 5 stars except for this one. To All the Boys I Loved Before got 4 stars. P.S. I Still Love You got 4.5, and this one got the 5 stars. I thought this story was really great. It was just more real, more realistic. I mean, you can tell that Lara Jean's dealing with some anxiety and stress and stuff like that. And I really love how realistic some of the relationships were. Like, what if we don't end up at the same college? Will this even work out? What if I don't get accepted into my college? And yeah, so it was just really, just, I don't know, relatable. I mean, like, literally anybody's plans could fall through and then suddenly you don't have a plan. So I liked how sporadic it was and how much more real it was, because I found in the other 2 books that Lara Jean was more picture perfect and, like, I don't know. She just didn't really seem real, like a real person. But in this, I totally understood her. And I thought this was just a great addition to the story. And I'm so glad I read this month. So I gave this 5 stars. And I just really love the story. I felt like it was wrapped up really well. I wish there would have been a little bit more just to know what happened. But I guess it did leave off at a really, really good spot. And the ending did make me cry. So there's that. So yeah, those were the 8 books I read in January. My February TBR will be going out soon. There are a lot of unfinished books that I had in January. There's actually not that many. There's 5 in January that I didn't end up finishing. 6 if you count 6 of Crows. But those books are Vicious, We Are the Ants, Glass Sword, Iron King, and Strange the Dreamer. I was hoping to finish those books in the last couple days of January, but it just didn't happen. I would like to say I was busy, but I really wasn't. I was just in a book slump, and I'm just gonna have to realize that there's no shame in saying that. Like, I was in a book slump. I could not force myself to read, or I would not be able to get out of my book slump. So I'm hoping that reading Throne of Glass will actually pull me out of my book slump, because I found that that's what Assassin's Blade did. I was kind of in a book slump at the end of December, and reading Assassin's Blade at the beginning of January really pulled me out of it. I don't know, it's just something about Sarah J. Maas books, guys. So maybe reading a Sarah J. Maas book at the beginning of each month will definitely help me pick up my reading pace so I can reach that 100 book goal for the month. Which is actually not too unrealistic if you think about it. Like, that's... I would have to read less than 10... No. I'm struggling a little bit. I would have to read, like, a little bit more than 10 books a month. Which I know hasn't happened thus far, but I know my reading picks up in spring. Hopefully that didn't just jinx myself. But I digress. So those are my plans. I really hope to carry some of those books into February. I know February is the shortest month and I have some very unrealistic reading expectations. But I would just like to see myself getting back into reading and doing what I love. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you for the next video. Comment down below what you read for January, or if you plan to read any of the books I mentioned. Or just leave a comment down below. I love to hear from you guys. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.